I think that's how people be thinking. Like,
Yeah,
I don't know.
it's
I don't think
definitely
like that.
not to cut you off, but like that's, and to me that go back sort of into like and this is again one of the mind states where like different places have different sort of cultural ideologies or cultural beliefs, and there's definitely like different camps of what maybe represents Rockford the best. Like there is, a camp of, lyricism being the most important thing. There's a camp of, street music being the most important thing. There's a camp of, just being young and you only, if you like 30 and you rapping, you nasty. So I'm not even trying to share this. And I remember being young, like, and having that sort of thought where like, man, it's over with for you. Like you need to get out the way, and then as you age and you get older, your perspective widens and your perspective shifts. And one of the things I was talking to Vinny, homie Vinny Crew about that we had a conversation with was about how a lot of times we view hip hop and we view the music industry is like the NBA or like the NFL, where if you haven't made it by the time you 23, 24,
then, they put like an age.
Yeah, you done. It's over with. Yeah. You should be doing something else, and it's it's nothing that's happening. You're not going to be a 30-year-old rookie in the NBA or a 31-year-old rookie in the NFL. You tapped out.
Right,
and a lot of times, you should view it like being a lawyer or being a doctor or a career where you have a longer arc in your career. One of the reasons you view the NBA or the NFL like that is because usually your career, like on average, like 6 years. You got a 6-year career, so it's over. You got to get in quick, and it's gonna be over with quick.
Retiring at 35, y'all still got a long life.
Exactly, and they go on to have second and third lives and things like that. And one of the unfortunate things that can happen with music, and I think this was more likely to be, or this narrative was closer to being true before the internet age, where it's like, you've created something and you've made something, and if you don't get that thing to be big by a certain point in time, it's over with, it's done, it's gone. Yeah. Whereas now with the internet age, like this content lives, this music lives, these videos live, this streaming lives. You see something as small as somebody sample a new song or sample a song that's old, and the original song streams go up, or something happens, and an artist that's been around for 5-6 years, they become big all of a sudden and go from being underground and become like a closer to a mainstream thing because of one song or one video that happened. And I think that that's one of the things that's really important about viewing music, is viewing it as a long-term thing, viewing this as something that, you're not supposed to be done with by the time you 30 or 35, you 40, 45, 50, 55, you still different avenues within music that you can, tap into and that you can create with. And I think that the closer we get to understanding that real change in, technology, that real change in perception, the closer, especially the city will get, where once that one person does get over the finish line, or once those few people do get closer to the finish line, you'll see all of this wave that'll come behind them that'll only make whoever that person is, get pushed up even more. Yeah. There's something special with hip hop as a music genre that really doesn't exist in other genres, where just somebody coming up and being from a place makes the music of that place become more relevant. Being the biggest rapper in the world, being from Detroit or being from Chicago or being from New Orleans or being from Houston or being from Compton makes the music that gets made in those places something people want to listen to more, something people want to pay more attention to. Just in the time that I done grown up, I remember when, I was in high school and in middle school, Chicago rap wasn't a big thing. Chicago hip hop music, not locally maybe, we grew up listening to Do or Die and Common and, but Kanye was the biggest rapper from Chicago that existed. That was the first time that the biggest rapper in the world was from Chicago, and that facilitated, a little bit more attention to Chicago, Lupe Fiasco and more and more things happening, where by the time Chief Keef and Lil Durk, by the time like Chicago music, Chicago drill music, Chicago became like a thing, that was a new event that had happened, and it's hard to sort of remember that, in hindsight. But that is, that's the thing that's true, and it's the same thing with like Flint, music in Flint, has a big thing now, and that city's big, even Detroit, Detroit wasn't wasn't Brooklyn, like Detroit wasn't Atlanta, and before Atlanta wasn't Atlanta, even right. Compton, like now Compton, it's multiple artists that's from, YG and Kendrick Lamar, straight out of, right but, in the game, but, when you was in, a bunch of, TDE and stuff like that, but when we was growing up, that wasn't necessarily a thing that's true, and like there is these generational changes that happen, and a lot of times we forget that within these generational changes, when these cities get big, when these cultural shifts happen, there's so many people who have built up a culture and an ecosystem within those places to sort of help facilitate that.
Bro, it's perfect you just named